All right, hello everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to day two of the 2025 IEHA Spring Virtual Conference. My name is Arne Burns. I am the Health Education and Training Specialist with IPHA, and I have the pleasure of being everyone's host for today. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker for today. Our first speaker for today, we have Ying-Ching Ma. Ying-Ching Ma is the Acting Deputy Director of the Office of Nutrition and Food Labeling in the Nutrition Center of Excellence within FDA's Human Foods Program. Her previous leadership roles at the FDA include the Director of the Division of Critical Foods and Dietary Supplement Enforcement, the Director of the Compliance Policy Staff, and the Chief of the Beverages Branch. Among other duties, she leads the food program's economic adulteration activities. Prior to joining the FDA, Ying-Ching worked for industry and academia. Ying-Ching received her BS, MS, and PhD in food science from Cornell University. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on over to Ying-Ching Ma.
Thank you so much, Anne. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks again. Well, good afternoon or good morning. Again, I'm Ying-Ching Ma. My job changed slightly. There's a lot of moving pieces, but I'm continue to work on in the area of economically motivated adulteration. I really appreciate the opportunity today to share our work at FDA and economically motivated adulteration. Sometimes it's also referred to as food fraud. So I may use these terms interchangeably for the purpose of the presentation. So EMA, or economically motivated adulteration, it's really an integral part of FDA's history. The history of EMA, including substitution, dilution, poor quality, and harmful products, were the impetus of Dr. Wiley's crusade for pure and safe foods. Honey and olive oil were mentioned in this paragraph describing FDA history. These commodities continue to be high risk for food fraud, even today. So what is EMA? Generally speaking, EMA refers to fraudulent intentional substitution or addition of a substance in a product for the purpose of increasing the apparent value of the product or decreasing the cost of its production for economic gain. So hopefully today's presentation will be interesting to you. I'm just going to turn off my video for the presentation so you are not distracted by my video and you can look at the slides. And I'll turn my video back on when we have Q&A session. So to tackle EMA, it really requires a multidisciplinary and collaborative approach. And at the FDA, staff from different program areas with diverse expertise work together to address EMA. We have staff with expertise in regulatory strategy, product adulterant pairs, method development, communication and external engagement, signals monitoring and management, risk-based prioritization, and compliance and enforcement. In addition, we actively collaborate with our state and federal regulatory partners and our international counterparts. Our actions are based on the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which provides the FDA with explicit authority to take actions against volatile products. And I'll give an overview of our regulatory framework and our current activities. So the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, or the FDNC Act, has long-standing provisions related to EMA. Specifically, in the Act, Section 402B describes four conditions that are considered EMA, including omission, substitution, concealment of damage, and increasing the weight, quality, and making it appear to be of greater value. Other adulteration charges can also apply depending on the specific case. For example, Section 4(2)(a)(1) related to poisonous and deleterious substance, which may render a food injurious to health. An example is elevated lead in ground cinnamon with suspected adulteration by lead chromate. So both adulteration, economic adulteration, but also a health hazard. Another example is adulteration with a color additive. For example, unsafe color additive added to mimic or enhance the color of, say, fake saffron. In addition to adulteration, Section 4(3) of the FD&C Act covers misbranding. Many of the economically adulterated products are also misbranded. Some relevant sections include 4(3)(a)(1) regarding whether the label is false or misleading, and Section 4(3)(e)(2) related to net quantity declaration. These charges are not mutually exclusive and really based on the specific violation and the evidence we have, multiple charges can be applied, including multiple adulteration charges or both the adulteration and misbranding charges. Well, several FDA regulations cover EMA, and an example is regulations under the FSMA law, such as the Preventive Controls Rule for human foods and the Foreign Supply Verification Program for importers. Both regulations have provisions requiring facilities or importers to address food safety hazards associated with economically motivated adulteration. An example is unapproved color additives in spices. However, EMA that affects product integrity or quality, but not food safety, is outside the scope of these regulations. But such violations are nonetheless covered by the FD&C Act, as I discussed earlier. Many labeling regulations are applicable. For example, we have the labeling regulation related to the percentage juice declaration and minimum Brix values for reconstituted juice. An example is apple juice. The regulation requires a minimum Brix value of 11.5 Brix for 100% reconstituted apple juice. A level below the minimum Brix value for a product labeled as 100% reconstituted apple juice would be considered both adulterated and misbranded. In addition, FDA has established standard of identity regulations that cover a variety of products. Examples include cheese and related products, juices, sweeteners, and others. In addition to regulations, FDA has issued several guidance documents that cover the topic of EMA, and I have listed a few here on the slide. We have a guidance for industry regarding the proper labeling of honey and honey products. We have a guidance for industry regarding the fraudulent practice of including ice glaze as part of the weight of frozen seafood. We also have a guidance on the proper names for seafood species. FDA has also published compliance policy guides, or CPGs, related to economic adulteration. CPGs are guidance for FDA staff regarding criteria that warrant recommendations for compliance actions. Relevant CPGs include water in food products, seafood names, cloves adulterated with stems, net weight, country of origin. I just want to mention regarding country of origin labeling, FDA's policy prohibits false or misleading labeling. However, in general, our policy is that for potentially false or misleading country of origin labeling, we refer the case to Customs and Border Protection for enforcement. And more detail can be found in the CPG if you're interested. So in the next few slides, I will dive deep into three documents, two guidances for industry and one CPG, to just give you a flavor regarding how we approach EMA. So the first example is our guidance for industry on the proper labeling of honey and honey products. The guidance includes a summary of the FDA legal authority that are most relevant to the labeling of honey. It provides important questions and answers on the labeling of honey. I have copied one example here on the slide, which is a common type of adulteration and misbranding we have seen based on our sampling. The Violator product is labeled as honey, but the ingredient statement only lists honey and no other ingredients. However, based on FDA testing, the product contains honey and another sweetener, such as sugar or corn syrup. In this case, another sweetener has been substituted in part for honey, and we would consider such product adulterated under multiple provisions. Under Section 402B1 of the Act, because a valuable constituent, honey in this case, has been omitted. Under Section 402B2 of the Act, because sugar or corn syrup has been used to substitute honey. And under 402B4, because sugar or corn syrup has been added to the honey to increase its bulk or weight or to make it appear better or of greater value. Again, we can put multiple charges based on evidence and specific product adulterant pair. Further, we would consider the product misbranded under Section 4.3 of the Act due to improper labeling of the food, both the name of the food as honey alone and also the ingredient statement, which is not correct. Well, a product can certainly contain a blend of honey and corn syrup as long as the product is properly labeled. For example, in that case, if the product indeed contains a blend of honey and corn syrup, the proper name could be blend of honey and corn syrup. And the ingredient list would also need to declare honey and corn syrup to be truthful and not misleading. Here's another example. This is a guidance on net weight declaration of frozen seafood. Now, ice glaze may be added to frozen seafood. Ice glaze or a thin layer of frozen water is used to protect frozen seafood during storage and transportation. It helps preserve the quality of seafood. However, if ice glaze is used, the net weight of the frozen seafood may not include weight of the glazing ice. So if ice glaze is included in the net weight declaration, such product would be adulterated under 4.2b of the Act, as ice was added to increase the bulk of the product. The product would also be misbranded under Section 4.3e for failure to have an accurate statement of net quantity. So this is an example of CPG. This specific example is related to net weight declaration, or the violation would be short weighting. For FDA testing, we take 48 units, and if the average is 1% lower than the declared weight, we will recommend the product or the firm for regulatory action. The product would be considered adulterated and misbranded. Well, there are many adulteration possibilities. I have listed some common ones or high-risk pairs here on the slide. Examples include adulteration of high-value syrups with low-value syrups. An example is honey adulteration with corn syrup. Adulteration of high-value oils with low-value oils. For example, olive oil or avocado oil adulterated with soybean oil. Use of unsafe or undeclared color additives to enhance the color of the product, where there is a significant relationship between the color and product value. Examples include unapproved color additives in saffron and green olives. Adulteration of botanical ingredients with lower quality plant substitutes. Various spices have been reported in the literature and by sampling by other countries and FDA. An example is FDA testing of saffron, and as for some, for some of these products, we detected safflower, which is of lower value. Another example is 100% juice adulteration. For example, lemon juice adulterated with water and citric acid. A pomegranate juice adulterated with less expensive juices, such as apple juice or grape juice. Over declaration of net weight, I just discussed earlier, the inclusion of ice glaze in the net weight declaration of frozen seafood. Seafood species substitution. And you probably have seen in news articles as well on this topic, basically selling a lower value species as a high value species. There are many other possibilities. Food analytical chemistry really plays a significant role in addressing food fraud. And we have to devote resource to develop and validate method to detect new substances used to adulterate products. This is also one of the challenges for tackling economic adulteration because we don't have unlimited resource. Unlike known adulterants such as salmonella, listeria, or toxic elements, in some cases, we may not have complete knowledge of what is used for adulteration. And sometimes it involves unconventional adulterants, and they are purposely designed not to be detected by existing analytical methods. Therefore, estimating how frequently food fraud occurs or the extent of economic impact can be very difficult. And we really don't have a good estimate. FDA doesn't have a good estimate. External researchers have done some estimation, and they have estimated roughly perhaps 1% of the global food industry may be impacted by economic adulteration. In the next few slides, I will give saffron as an example to show the type of adulteration. In April 2024, FDA lab published a macro analytical method for saffron. This method is available online. Within the method itself, it provides some great pictures of adulteration, examples of saffron adulteration and fake saffron. So on this slide, pictures A and B are authentic saffron filaments. Look at picture C and D. These pictures show a completely different plant. In this case, safflower. Under the microscope, very different from authentic saffron, which may not always be obvious to an average consumer. These three pictures show fake saffron, perhaps synthetic fibers with color additives. Especially image 3, you can clearly see the fibrous structure. It's not saffron. So how do we tackle EMA at FDA? To more effectively utilize our resource, we monitor signals to prioritize our economic adulteration work. Signals can come from different sources, for example, consumer complaints or industry complaints, intergovernment communications, subject matter expertise, for example, based on certain economic signals, certain industry trends, certain conditions that drastically impact production or demand of a particular product. We also evaluate external resources such as news articles, scientific publications, and conference presentations. With analysis of signals, we can allocate resource to either surveillance or targeted sampling or inspection. In addition, signals can help us evaluate trend over time and to determine whether to spend resources in a particular area. Signal detection is very important, but it's also very challenging, can be very resource intensive. That's certainly another challenge as we combat economic adulteration. Given the limited resource, we have to do risk-based prioritization. We consider a variety of factors, including the strength of the signal, economic damage, public health impact, certainly something that have a public health impact will be prioritized in addition to consideration of economic impact. In the consumption patterns, method availability, regulatory strategy, and stakeholder concerns, and our own priorities and resources, and any other relevant factors as we consider where we spend our resource on. These factors, again, are considered as we design our regulatory approaches and strategies. In the next few slides, I'll give an overview of our compliance and enforcement activities. I'll also discuss some recent assignments. So to tackle EMA, we would conduct sampling or inspections. These can be general surveillance or targeted towards specific firms, regions, countries, or specific types of commodities, or a category of products with specific attributes. For example, ground spices versus intact spices, or ground spices versus colored ground spices, really depending on what we are looking for and what would be priority for us. In addition to actions taken against products of firms, when appropriate, we may also refer some cases to our Office of Criminal Investigation for additional investigation and appropriate follow-up. Our past enforcement activities include recalls, warning letters, import alerts, and criminal prosecution. For imported products, we have a tool called Import Alert. Import Alert prevents potentially volatile products from being distributed in the US. Firms and their products listed under the import alerts are subject to detention without physical examination, or DWPE. DWPE allows FDA to detain an imported product without physically examining the product at the time of entry. I have listed 4 commonly used import alerts for economic adulteration. And volatile products with multiple violations can be placed on multiple import alerts. For example, I mentioned that a product can be adulterated under economic adulteration provision of the Act and misbranded, and it can be placed on both adulteration and misbranding import alerts. So the first example is really the general import alert that covers all human foods for all types of violation related to economic adulteration. That's Import Alert 9947, detention without physical examination of human food that appear to be adulterated for economic gain. The second one is 9942, related to adulteration due to chemical toxic element contamination. For example, if we find elevated lead levels due to lead chromate in a spice, we could add the implicated firm and product on both import alerts 9947 and 9942. The third one is import alert 9939, which is detention without physical examination of imported food products that appear to be misbranded. Again, many economically adulterated products are also misbranded. The fourth one is Import Alert 45-05, detention without physical examination regarding illegal or undeclared color additives. I already provided the example earlier. For example, saffron, right? For fake saffron with added colors, the product can be placed both on Import Alert 9947 and Import Alert 4505. So this slide just gives a bit more information about Import Alert 9947. I looked up the Import Alert end of February. Products listed include spices, specifically saffron and ground cinnamon, seafood, including frozen squid and shrimp, sweeteners, including honey, dairy products such as ghee, and juices, including lemon juice and pomegranate juice. These are some of the high-risk products I mentioned earlier. So FDA has a website dedicated to economically motivated adulteration. If you're interested, please visit this website and want to learn more about our activities. The website contains information similar to what I have presented here. It has a report section that will take you to our recent reports on sampling assignment. It also has a link to FDA publications related to economically motivated adulteration, mostly publication related to analytical testing methods. So I'd like to quickly go over 2 sampling assignments we conducted in recent years. Both assignments targeted imported honey, which is a high-risk product for economic adulteration. The first one was conducted in fiscal year 21 and 22. We tested 144 samples from 32 countries. Out of these, 14 were violative, and they were imported from the Dominican Republic, Greece, India, Italy, Lebanon, Thailand, Vietnam, and Yemen. Given the results, we conducted a follow-up assignment in fiscal year 22 and 23. For that follow-up assignment, we tested 107 samples from 25 foreign countries. Out of these, 3 were found to be violative, and they were imported from the Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Yemen. When violative products are detected, FDA follow-up actions include refusal of entry into the US, placement of the product and firm on import alerts, which I mentioned earlier, and increased surveillance of violative firms or regions. One thing I would like to mention that these 2 assignments were not statistically designed to make influence of importing countries or for comparison, for the 2 assignments regarding violation rates. We continue to monitor industry compliance and continue to develop additional methods for the detection of undeclared sweeteners to protect consumers. And these results, again, are posted online with detailed information about sample results if you're interested in more details. So really quick, again, as I mentioned in the beginning of the talk, to tackle economically motivated adulteration requires a multidisciplinary approach. It really takes a collaborative team to put all the puzzles together so we can drive industry compliance and to protect the interest of consumers. As I mentioned earlier about signals, and we do rely on complaints submitted to FDA as a source of signal. So I take this opportunity to share how you can report information to FDA. To report potential fraud, I have listed the FDA website here. You can just Google "get assistance from FDA Human Foods Program" and you'll be able to get to this site. And on this site, there is a section on how to report complaints to FDA. You can do it by submission through an online portal or by calling FDA. And for economic adulteration, when complaints are received by FDA, we do evaluate them, and we evaluate on a case-by-case basis to determine the appropriate next steps. And there is an FDA website here that provides detailed information on what typically happens after we receive a complaint. And in general, depending on the seriousness of the problem, we will either investigate immediately or will cover it during the next inspection of the facility responsible for the product. And we may reach out to the firm to gather additional information. In some cases, such complaints really feed into our signal I talked about earlier and will inform our future method development or assignments or future focus areas. So it is important to us. I hope the presentation has given you more understanding of economically motivated adulteration and FDA activities. Happy to answer any questions. Also welcome your thoughts and comments. And please feel free to reach out to me after today's meeting as well. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ying. Um, I wanted to
Any
open the floor if anyone has questions. I didn't see anything in Q&A, and I'm going back through the chat box just to double check. Oh, there's a Q&A. Oh, can you send a copy of the PowerPoint? So yes, all the
Yes.
PowerPoints will be provided to attendees. I think the IEHA office is going to send out PowerPoint slides to everyone. You're welcome, Wanda. Okay. Any other questions?
Questions come up in the future, feel free to reach out to me.
No, absolutely. All right. Well, again, thank you, Ying Cheng, for speaking with us for today. Oh, we do have a question. Hold on. Are there any new laws or regulations relating to this coming in the future? Ooh, that's a good question.
Not that I'm aware of. I believe we have adequate authority under the FDNC Act. As I mentioned, we have section 402A, 402B, very explicit authority for us to, tackle economic adulteration. And if we do have new regulations, certainly it will be for public comments and will be issued as draft, but not that I'm aware of, nothing I'm aware of at this time.
Okay. There's another question here. What is the biggest fine you've ever seen and for what?
What's the question again?
What is the biggest fine you have ever seen and for what?
You mean financial fines?
Mm,
Monetary fines?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So for the foods program, we have very limited civil money penalty. So we don't use that tool for economic adulteration. However, on the criminal side, our Office of Criminal Investigation, they have pursued cases related to economic adulteration. You can search our Office of Criminal Investigation. They have news alerts, and on their website they have information related to criminal prosecutions, and there are fines. There's prison time for people responsible for the crime. So that's certainly, if you're interested, please Google our Office of Criminal Investigation.
Okay. Another question here. What is the most common way you are made aware of possible adulteration? Complaints mainly?
Yes, as I mentioned, it's really we taking a lot of information. Complaints is one way, both consumer complaints, if they, for example, is they used to a certain product, they suddenly, find that the product maybe look a little different, they can report to us and we'll do an investigation. Sometimes industry will send complaints to us for a competitor, perhaps. We also get information from other countries when they test positive for a product, finding relative samples, and if we see emerging trends in a certain area. So, and we look at news articles. They're testing done by universities. Some of you may be aware of analytical analysis by UC Davis. They do sampling assignments. They do research studies on potentially related to economic adulteration. We certainly look at recent publications and news articles. So basically, all the information we can obtain publicly available or share with us confidentially, by states, by our foreign counterparts. We gather that information and really, it's a collaborative approach. And we look at that information, evaluate, is that likely? Is that something we will also see in the US, on the US market? Is that mostly import, domestic? And all these are considered.
Thank you. One more question here. Do you anticipate increased problems with the tariffs?
It's um it's hard to know. I think as I mentioned, economic adulteration sometimes we don't know the extent of adulteration because we don't have the resource to test every product. And in some cases, the adulteration is purposely designed to evade the current methodology. If you think about melamine adulteration, you know, many, many years ago in China and in pet food, the if you're just testing nitrogen, you're not testing it. So I think it's really hard to predict, and we are doing our best using our resource to protect consumers and to really target high-risk products. And I think, monitoring the signals, as I mentioned, even though it's resource intensive, it's something we want to do so that we can put our resource in the right area to protect consumers.
Oh, one more question. You've been speaking mainly of imports. Is this a large or significant problem within the U.S. food industry?
We have been testing imports. We have also tested domestic products. So, I mean, I don't think we have done like statistically significant kind of comparison import versus domestic. It just some products are more imported. Some of the spice products, like saffron, like most of the saffron are imported. So we're not testing domestic product. A lot of seafood are imported to the US. So we focus more on imported products. So it really depends. I think the consideration, really a holistic consideration, perhaps where the product is coming from, what are high risk countries, it could be in the US as well. It just really dependent on the product.
Excellent. What percentage of products are tested?
I don't have the exact number. I would say in general, of course, as I mentioned, we do a risk-based approach. If a product has a high food safety risk, it may rise to the high priority, and we do spend more resource probably on for food safety protection. Um, so I think I don't have like percentage per se, but I would say it's in consideration of resource available to FDA and what are the priorities, in terms of based on the signal we get and what we can do, what methods available, what enforcement strategies available.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Does anyone else have any other questions? Those are really good questions. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, very good questions. So I don't know, maybe a question to state regulators on the call, whether you do any work related to economic adulteration.
I don't see anything in the chat.
Yeah. I mean, if you would like to discuss, again, please reach out to me.
All right. Thank you so much. Um, Monitoring our time here. Again, thank you, Yingxing, so much for your presentation. Thank you all for engaging, asking questions. I think this was really great. What I'm going to go ahead and do, since we did end a little bit early, is I'm going to give you all back about 15 minutes. Our next presentation is going to start at 2 o'clock. So what I'll do is I'll pause our recording here. And then when it's time for us to come back, I'll come back on and then introduce our next speakers. Thank you all so much, and I will see you back at 2 o'clock. All right, everyone, welcome back. We have about a minute before we start our 2 p.m. session. So what I'm going to do, oh, look at that, and just turned 2 o'clock. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and introduce our 2 guest speakers for our next presentation here. So today we're going to be joined by Maxine Lithicum Davis and Bridget Sweet. Maxine Lithicum Davis received her BS from Coppin State University and prior to joining Amtrak was employed in several local health departments in the Mid-Atlantic region. Maxine supports Amtrak from Washington, D.C. South and is an integral part of the EHS division. Bridget Sweet is the Director of Public Health and has held the role for 3 years. Prior to joining Amtrak, Bridget served as the Executive Director of Food Safety for Johnson & Wales University. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Maxine and Bridget.
Good afternoon, everyone. Maxine, can you share the screen, please? Sorry, guys. Oh. Max? All right, I got it. Oh, she's got it. Never mind. Look at that. Sorry, guys. So anyway, while we're waiting for Maxine, I can tell you that there was quite a bit of food fraud in New England. I'm from the Boston area, if you can't tell from my accent. And back in 2016, it was actually called the Cod Father because this gentleman was so egregious with his violations through NOAA, through IRS, that it was in New York State and Massachusetts State. So if you Google it, there's actually a couple podcasts about it. It's fascinating. He mislabeled almost 800,000 pounds of fish in the course of his career. Not nice, right? Maxine, can you do it so it doesn't have the stuff on the right? The presenter mode? Or go to slideshow? It shows the stuff on the right. Sorry, all. We're really good at not being technically proficient. You would think with COVID and all these virtual meetings, you'd be a little bit better at it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not used to Zoom, so I'm trying to figure it out. 1 second, sorry.
No, you're fine.
You're completely
Let's be
fine.
talking about the Codfather. I mean, why not, right? Do you want me just to pull it up, Maxine?
Sure, I had to find my unmute button on this Zoom call. 1 second.
Sorry, everyone. We did practice this too. Can you tell? Let's pull this up here. All right. Why is it doing the same thing? I don't have it on there. I have it on slideshow. Well, Maxine, all right, is it okay if we just go like this? I don't want to keep belaboring the point, but it shows that it's showing in slideshow.
No, it's fine. Did you want me to share? I think I
Yeah,
have
you know what? That would
slide.
probably be even better if you can do it with nonsense on the side.
No, it's all
Oh,
good.
thank you.
I see what I
Sorry,
can.
everyone.
Now, when I'm in sharing mode, if anybody's asking questions, I might not be able to see until after they wrap up, just as a mini disclaimer. Okay. How's that look?
That's perfect. That's fine. Perfect. Thank you so much. And can you go to the next slide for me? Because we already, I'll just keep going. So I'm going to turn my camera off as well, because you do not need to listen. I mean, look at me while you listen to my Boston accent. So at Amtrak, we take all safety very seriously, not just food safety, although my passion and priority has always been food safety since I came into public health over 20 years ago. So just as a high level overview to share with you all how we broach every meeting across the network, we actually have a safety and security briefing with all of our team members, no matter where we are in the network. So if we're on board equipment, if we're in a building, if we're in a yard, we always want to make sure that we're aware of our physical surroundings because things could happen. And it's just part of our integral culture. And that's why our food safety program is so important across the network, because if we have ill passengers or ill employees, we're not doing our job very well. Can you go to the next slide, please? Awesome. So this is our mission statement. It's super old, but the tenet and the values still remain true. And really what we're looking for and what we continue to do is continuous improvement. So as we all know from different iterations of the food code, of different scientific advancements, things do change. So we work really closely with stakeholders both in regulatory, academia, and then in industry to make sure that we're always moving towards the best method possible with continuous improvement. So we're constantly evaluating our programs for efficiency, but also for safety. Again, safety is our primary goal across the board, whether it's food safety, whether it's employee safety. All of those things are really important to Amtrak as a whole. Part of our challenge, however, as I'm sure you can imagine, we are very limited in some of our capacity in some of our spaces. So I'm not sure if any of you have been on board an Amtrak train, but we don't have a whole lot of room in our kitchen areas, our lounge cars, or our cafe cars, and that can become a problem. Just in general, because when we have less space, we rush. We want to make sure we're getting things done. It can be just very, very challenging sometimes. Can we go to the next slide, please? And also, if I'm talking too fast, please let me know, flag it on the corner and I'll find it. All right, so again, just a high level overview of how we operate here at Amtrak. Our public health team does report up through the Assistant Vice President of Safety, Health, and Environmental. And that division is occupational health, environmental health, medical services, and then our bubble public health. So we work really closely together, again, across the network to ensure safety in all different facets of the business. And then our vice president reports directly to the chief safety officer, who's also an executive vice president. So we have a pretty direct line to our executive leadership. So if we're running into a continuing problem, we are able to get buy-in fairly quickly because we have that direct line up to the top. Part of our challenge is that we're not a very big team. So there is 7 of us total on the team, and we cover the entire country. Amtrak operates in 46 states plus Canada. So there is definitely some gaps there. So we do the best we can. And as I'm sure you all know from the regulatory, even the industry side, your inspection or your audit is just a snapshot in time. So we work really closely with all of our teams to make sure that they realize if they did really, really great today, they got to do really, really great tomorrow. It doesn't mean that it's magic. And if they had some concerns or some areas of improvement, that's okay too, because they can make better tomorrow. So always working with our employees and our colleagues in that manner. Two of our team members are actually out in the Chicago area, so they cover a lot of long distance trains. And I would just like you guys to kind of consider part of the challenge of a long distance trip versus some of our commuter trains. So again, I'm from the Boston area. I'm currently based in Philadelphia. So I take the train up and down the corridor a lot. It's a 5-hour train trip. So if something does go wrong, we have a pretty short window that we can kind of fix things. Whereas long distance, some of these trains can be 3 days long, 3 days across the network. So if we have a power outage, we're losing all that food and we have to order out. It can be very, very complicated. So we are currently in the process of new equipment, and some of our new equipment, as we design and put through the RFP, we're actually looking towards electronic temperature monitoring that's 24/7. Again, just to make sure that we're doing our due diligence at all times. Next slide, please. So I'm not sure, I know everyone here is kind of from a different area across Illinois, but I came from a local regulatory in Massachusetts, and we're very broken in Massachusetts in the sense that we have 351 local health departments that work with the state health department, and every local health department has home rule. And then when I went into the university space, we still only followed the model food code. Here at Amtrak, and this was quite a bit of a learning curve for me. Yes, we follow the retail model food code on board, but we also are held to the standards from the ITP, the Interstate Travel Program. And that's also, it's still overseen by the FDA, but there are some variations and some differences. And that was probably my biggest learning curve, going from academia into this space, because I thought I was like Little Miss Food Code. And then we come over here and there are some different challenges and some different opportunities based on our infrastructure and our equipment. We're also regulated by FSMA because of our commissaries and our stationary facilities. And then we're regulated by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, because of all of the water that we board. And then obviously there are some other agencies that the FRA, OSHA, we kind of fall into the sort of melting pot of all different regulatory agencies. And at times that can be challenging as we're reporting up through leadership because they just hear the acronyms and there are a lot of moving pieces. So we just want to make sure that we're explaining things and bringing that why to the forefront as much as possible as we report up, and to bringing that why down as we report down with our colleagues across the network. Next slide, please. So the ITP is the Interstate Travel Program. Again, as I said before, it's administered by the FDA. And basically what that means is that we are held to this standard, and it allows random unannounced inspections of any of our facilities that are related to our food operation or our car watering at any time. So the FDA can show their badge, they can board our equipment at any time, and if something is unsavory or unsafe, they actually have the ability to stop our passenger train service. If you can imagine, that would not be awesome. We want to be on time. We want to move our passengers in the safest way possible. We want to make sure we're not having these challenges. So our team has standards and regulations that are a little bit more restrictive than the ITP or the FDA Model Food Code in the event that we can circumvent some of these challenges before they arise. The other different kind of area for that was new to me when I jumped into this field or into this transportation bubble is that the construction standards are very different for conveyances. So the ITP program, again, it's a federal agency and it oversees trains, it oversees domestic aircraft, it oversees domestic cruise lines, so cruises that go kind of down either in the Great Lakes or down some of the internal rivers, and then also buses. So there's this one sort of broad set of regulations that we all fit into, with the airlines being the biggest component. So we're following air conveyance regulations, and sometimes things don't always translate bolt for bolt or line for line, and that's where we kind of have to really work closely with our regulators to make sure that we're interpreting correctly as we build out new equipment, and that again where everything is cleanable, smooth, all of that fun stuff. The other agency that we work closely with is the Public Health Agency of Canada, because our trains do go up through Canada. And part of our challenge across the board with Canada is that their minimum temperatures are a little bit different than ours. So for example, hand washing temperatures with the new Model Food Code is significantly lower than it used to be. Whereas in Canada, the minimum temperature for hand washing is 120 degrees. So just trying to make sure that we're doing, our due diligence, practicing safe practices, but at times, if that hot water heater is too hot, we don't want to discourage people from washing their hands either. So it can be a balancing act sometimes. Next slide, please. I went ahead. So again, as I kind of iterated in the beginning, we work closely with the US EPA as well for our compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act. So much like brick and mortar establishments have to submit either well results or be on municipal potable water, we have to demonstrate our compliance with the same. And the challenge the challenge for us is that we're constantly boarding water from different municipal locations across the country. And we're considered our own water source, even though we're pulling water from A, B, and C. So we have to remit programs and our policies and procedures to the EPA for their review and their final sign off as to how we're going to disinfect and flush our water tanks. Because not only are water tanks for hand washing, there can be for food preparation, for washing our wares, things of that nature. So we really need to make sure we're doing all of the right things all of the time. This past year, 2024, our sampling requirement changed. So we have to take a minimum, every single water carrying car has to be sampled a minimum of 1 time a year. And if we're disinfecting and flushing at a different frequency, it could actually be as many times as 4 times a year. And we have to remit all of our samples to the EPA on a quarterly basis. And that's to, again, show our due diligence that we're doing the right thing, and that we're providing safe potable water at all times. Sometimes the challenge is that we are in the same space as freight, and our freight partners don't carry food or people. So they're not held to the same standard for potable water and for hand washing. And I'm not sure if you've all ever come across this, but some people think that just because it's for hand washing, it doesn't need to meet that same level of sanitation. but people might brush their teeth in that sink. People wash their hands and put their hands in their mouths. So, there are a lot of different reasons why we want to make sure all of our water is, above board in many ways. If we are non-compliant, we can be fined up to $65,000 per day. And that's per area. So that can be obviously, a monetary hang up, if you will. And again, we are require routine draining and filling and disinfecting and flushing maintenance. So our team supports the training and the overseeing of those practices, even though it's with the mechanical division. And our challenge here is that this type of maintenance can only occur at specific locations across the network because of our infrastructure. So we can't bring an entire train set into a yard and dump every single tank of water, refill it, get that dwell time, drain it, refill it to make sure that we're rinsing out whatever bleach might be left over, and then dump it. So we have to make sure that we're following these procedures in a limited capacity with our infrastructure. So that's another challenge. So we're actually in the process of researching ozone as a disinfectant because it uses less water and it less time. So less water, less contact time, dwell time, and we can do it anywhere across the network because we no longer have to flush that water out. We can maintain that water because the residual will actually just off gas, dissipate. So we're in the process of that with the EPA. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm going over to my friend Maxine now.
All right, so we're going to cover inspections in our program. Inspections consist of basically the trains, which Bridget kind of mentioned. We have dining cars, cafe cars, parlor cars, sleepers, and coaches. So sleepers are basically what it says. These are our cars that are kind of like hotels. Coaches would be like your normal car that just consists of seats. Parlor cars are like the more fancier ones. They're mainly out west. There's not that many of the parlor cars. Cafe cars you will find on almost every train. These are basically like our lounge cars, kind of like going to a 7-Eleven or a Wawa, of that nature. You just want to go and get a snack or, something to drink per se. And the dining cars is exactly what it states. It's almost like a restaurant on wheels, basically. We inspect portable water facilities and laboratory sampling. So these would be our places that we will water our trains. We have several of them. So we basically go there annually to do our water point inspections. And then some places we may go to a little bit more frequently. We do have a company that comes and take our samples. We do a Collier test, kind of go back to what she was discussing with EPA, once a year for our cars. And then if something was to come back positive, then we have to kind of go back through the drain and flush process and then retest it. It's a whole process. So we used to do that in-house, but now we outsource that part out. We have commissaries that we have to inspect. So that's across the network, everywhere from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. It is contracted out through Aramark, so they're basically the ones that run the operation, but it is overseen by Amtrak. We have food vendors. So these are our vendors, of course, that are located on the outside that we receive most of our food from. So some, to give you an example, would be like Cisco. There are some smaller places that do a little bit more of a preparation for like our cellar trains that's out east where I am. Stuff of that nature. So we do inspect our vendors yearly to make sure that they are in compliance and they are up to our standards per se. We inspect restrooms. We have the public health related mechanical defects that we kind of go through. So while we're doing our inspections, if we are having a mechanical issue, so what will fall underneath mechanical could be, say, if there is no hot water at the hand sink or no water at all, if the refrigeration units are running too hot or too cold. These are different things that we will look for in our inspection, and we will reach out to mechanical to make sure that it's addressed. We do, unfortunately, have customer complaints. Not a lot, but we do get FBIs from time to time. Sometimes, allegedly that people are becoming ill from consuming Our food, I would say that sometimes our complaints of FBIs go with other complaints as far as the person's trip sometimes, unfortunately. If they're not having a so good of a trip, later on it comes down and like, oh, well, I ate in your cafe and that coffee I had gave me the runs. I don't know, like just to give you an example. So sometimes they're not always really legit. It's not always based on what the person consumed on our train. It's like their experience, unfortunately. We also work closely with our pest control provider. So we do have an IPM process here. We have them at all of our stations. We have them on board our trains. We work closely with them, especially in locations that have some opportunities. Anything that we have on our trains that we run into opportunities, we have messages and alerts that go out throughout the system. And we just work really closely with them to make sure that everything is taken care of and like abated. Equipment review policy. So this is, I mean, not policy, I'm sorry, equipment review. So this is more so kind of like your plan review. So we have quite a few new cars that are going to come out. So if you ever rode it, our trains before, a lot of them are pretty old. So we're getting some newer cars that is going through FDA and other FRA and other entities to make sure that we can get our sanitary certificate of approval from them so that these cars can be released. So we review the plans here. We also send them to the FDA as well. And then once they are okay and good to go, and we get our sanitary certificate, then the cars are released. Next slide, please. All right, so food safety on board. Onboard services are responsible for maintaining regulatory and internal standards and the safe preparation and presentation of food to our passengers. So OBS are basically our employees. They're like our, in a sense, kitchen employees or like our store employees. These are people that will be working the dining car, the cafe car. They even work our coaches. These are basically everyone that works on board outside of like your conductors, your assistant conductors, and engineers. The chefs and food specialists prepare the food in dining cars on long distance trains. So they're the ones basically that are doing all of the work. When you put your order in, we have an essay that would take the order. It goes to the chef, and the chef and the food specialist will prepare it. So the food specialist is almost like your sous chef, and then your chef is like your normal chef that you will see in a restaurant. The service attendants that I just spoke of, again, they're the ones that take the orders and they deliver the food. So we also have food that can be delivered to our sleeper car passengers in their room. So either they can come to the diner or we can have it delivered by their sleeper car attendant to their room. So what happens is they'll come around to the room, they'll take their order, they'll go to the kitchen, give it to the chef. They will basically prepare everything and then package it away so that the sleeper car attendant could come back and pick it up and deliver it to our passengers in their room if they rather have like that room service feel. Next, all food workers are responsible for food safety, as we all know. We got to make sure that they're documenting everything on their temperature monitoring sheet, dishwashing, sanitization, verification through thermal labels. That's what we use here. Proper thawing of foods, proper preparation of food, and employee hygiene. So these are all really important things that we try to stress when we do our inspections out in the field. Our inspections are unannounced most of the time as far as it comes to when we inspect on board. Although we do have people that sometimes try to check the manifest to see if we're actually coming on board to do an inspection. So it's kind of like a way of cheating to figure out if we're coming on board riding the train. So sometimes we, try to go underneath an alias if possible, or we'll just hop on, do an inspection, and then hop off. A lot of our trips, again, we'll hop on at one location. We can ride it all the way to the end point. So for me, like I'm based out of DC, I have the Southeast. So I can ride it from here down to Miami or from here to New Orleans. So, and I
We're in
can get off
Chicago
any,
now, Maxine, Chicago
oh,
now
yeah,
too.
Chicago. Oh, or DC to Chicago. That's one of my other lines, but now it's called the Floridian. So basically, it goes from Florida to Chicago. Uh, yep. So we also have a pre-departure checklist. This list helps us ensure compliance. So we have it for the OBS crew, and we also have it on the mechanical crew. Because what we want to make sure is that mechanical is checking the refrigeration units. And again, we want to make sure that we have hot water. We want to make sure the coffee maker is working prior to departure because there is not a mechanical location at every stop. They're kind of few and far between. So you may go a few hours or several hours before you come to a location that has a mechanical on site that may be able to address something en route um, as they're stopping there for like the 15 or 30-minute layover to help, help whatever issues they come across. Next slide, please. All right, so this here, as we continue to work with our OBS teams, we really try to stress the importance of the passenger perception because we do not do a whole lot of food preparation on board our trains, but we have to still be mindful of striving to reduce complacency in order to reach compliance without being punitive. So here are just some facts here to kind of show you what the generalization is, in food safety in restaurants. So like 57% of people are concerned about food safety when they go out to eat. Another one would be 90% of respondents say that they take note of food safety incidents at restaurants. I'm sure a lot of us in the room, or your house, or wherever you may be, definitely take note of that, especially when you are inspectors. For some reason, I cannot seem to turn off my inspecting, whether if I am in my own house, which my husband does not really, is not really fond of, whether if I'm at work or going out to eat, a lot of times we are still inspecting. So I can definitely agree with that 90%. So these are just a couple other figures. I'll give you a second to kind of read over and just look at. All right, so just lastly, before I go to the next slide, just to kind of stress here at Amtrak, another reason why we do not do a lot of food preparation on site or on our trains is because our trains are always in motion, right? So we don't want people like our food handlers chopping or slicing and dicing or anything of that nature. Meanwhile, the train is moving because that poses a greater safety risk. And we're all about safety here at Amtrak. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm sure everyone is used to seeing this here, our contributing factors to foodborne illnesses. For poor personal hygiene, 26.9%. That's not shocking because you go places and you watch people. A lot of times, as being an inspector, you may sit back and watch how a kitchen flows, right? We're watching to see if people are washing their hands, if they are scratching their ears or their tushes, or, if they're, playing with their hair or going up their nose or whatever it may be. So we're looking at all of these things, or if they're like handling raw food, then going to ready to eat food, making sure that they are washing their hands effectively, taking that time to make sure that they're taking care of their personal hygiene and proper holding temperatures at 22.7%. Unsafe food sources, 17.3, which is a little high. Inadequate cooking, 15.2%. Contaminated equipment, 11.7, and others at 6.3. So these are the things, of course, that we look out for to make sure that people aren't becoming ill. And while we're doing our inspections, we're making sure that the food handlers are not doing any of these things that are mentioned. Next slide, please. All right, so these are our beautiful dining cars. If you haven't been on our train, this is the calf car on the left. Our dining car service basically provides a full service dining experience for our passengers. So they'll come on board, they say they're interested in dining, or if they're in the sleeper car, they will come in. The SA will give them a seat at a table. A lot of times you don't know who you're sitting next to, especially if they're really busy. So it may be, you're sitting with 2 or 3 other people you may not know, but it makes for great conversation. Next, the product alley. The product is, I'm sorry, our product is generally sous vide here at Amtrak. Mostly everything we do is sous vide. Actually, we have one currently, one raw item. When I first started here, we had maybe like 3 or 4, kind of did away with that. We went more so with sous vide with everything to kind of help reduce the risk. And it's heated to a specified temperature for service. So that's mainly what we do here. The only preparation you may see like on that table, I'm not sure if you can see it. That looks like maybe grape tomatoes. That there would just be, washed and in place on top of, the salad. That literally will be it. At times, sometimes we may slice them. A lot of times the preparation, if it is any preparation like that, it will be done at the beginning of the trip, and they will go ahead and just slice them up and then place the sliced tomatoes into the refrigerator. So there's no complex preparation here. So a lot of times when we get chefs sometimes from the outside and they come to Amtrak, I don't want to say that they're kind of bored, but it is, I may probably say it. They're a little, bored because it's just not the same experience as if you go to a restaurant. We basically already have it identified as what they're going to serve, how to serve it, and how to prepare it and stuff like that. So they can't really go outside of their box or create their own menu. All of our menus come from our food and beverage team. Next slide, please. That's a bigger picture of the dining car, and that is what the kitchen galley looks like on the right side. At least one side of it is pretty long. All right. All right, so this will be our cellar line. Again, this is mostly here, well, not mostly, it is on the East Coast. It runs on our corridor, basically from Washington and Boston, with New York being in between. So it's more of an upscale train, I would say, per se. Anyone can ride it. We have a few things that we do a little different on Acela than the other trains. We provide a cart service. This cart service is kind of like, I hate to say our competitor, but the airlines. So it is a cart that basically comes through our cars, and we do wine, like cheese trays, sandwiches, small light bites, hummus and pretzels, stuff like that will be on the cart as they push it through. Just like if you were on an airplane, they make an announcement that they're coming through, and then people can stop and purchase as they go. Now, for food safety wise and occupational risk, food safety risk is kind of minimal. What we do is use time as a public health. So basically, we'll get our food from Aramark. It comes on board the train, goes straight into a refrigerator. Before they start the cart service, they will basically fill out our time as a public health control sheet. So they'll write down the name, the quantity of it, the temperature when it came out, the time that when it came out, and anything that's discarded or sold out at the end of it. This is all documented down so that we will have it in case we have like an FBI complaint or, or anything of that nature. We want to make sure we keep that in house. The occupational risk. If I was in person, I probably would ask this question, but occupational risk that we have here would be, of course, train jerking, right? Like this Acela is pretty fast. So I think it's about 150 miles per hour. I think the new ones are going to be like 160. So they can go up to that speed. As you're trying to push it through and pour wine, you're trying to, not injure anyone. We don't do anything hot on this cart, so it's not like any coffee or anything that you can possibly spill on anyone. The more so the risk is the train kind of jerking because of the tracks at times. And that cart, like, it does lock in place, but any big movement can, cause a shift in that. Or the LSA, who would be the young ladies on your left and right of your screen. Those are our lead service attendants. They basically are, or their assist. They will come out and they will push these carts out, and then they would basically sell anything on that cart. We have also a cafe car that sits in the middle of the consist of this train that sells a variety of things. Again, this is kind of comparable to, I don't want to say 7-Eleven because it's a little bit more upscale. I'm trying to think of like your next place of that you will get something from. Let's just say a nice little bistro or something. So they would do like different breakfast sandwiches, parfaits. They have lunch. This is a couple items that we have here in the center. This is how it's presented basically. So it's cute, I feel like. And then we also have dinner items, and we also have alcoholic beverages if anyone ever rides that train and may need a little something to get through the trip. We have a first class section, and that there is a little different because with your ticket, it is your meal is included, and so is all of your beverages. So that is a really good thing. We basically get our food for first class from a vendor, like a kitchen that prepares it, a manufacturer. They go through, they want to make sure that, everything is safe. They'll deliver it to us, of course, on a refrigerated truck, and then it goes into our commissary. So we have to be aware of any allergens, any physical contaminations. A lot of our facilities that we deal with, we want to make sure that it goes through and be scanned for any like metals or anything of that nature to help reduce, any risk of it being contaminated before we give it to, our passengers. Next slide, please. All right, so food and beverage warehouse operations. So these would be our commissaries that we spoke of. Amtrak maintains 12 major commissaries throughout the U.S. Aramark is contracted to manage these commissaries. And us here at Public Health, we conduct our internal assessments based on risk. We do monthly and quarterly inspections, basically, of these commissaries. So if you are based out of Chicago, there are 2 commissaries in Chicago. They have like a satellite commissary and a main commissary. So those 2 locations would get a visit every month to make sure that they're in compliance. And our further locations like New Orleans or Seattle, Boston, or anything of that nature, if they're further out, we do those quarterly to make sure that they are within standard. So we have a dual leadership framework on site between Aramark and Amtrak. Again, we do have an Amtrak like food and beverage manager that is on site at the Aramark locations. And then we have the Aramark like their GMs and other supervisors that's there as well. So they kind of like work hand in hand. If we end up having an issue during our inspection, we bring it to both of their attention to make sure that it is addressed in a timely manner. And we request for a CAP, like a corrective action plan, to be sent to us so that we know the items that we documented were addressed. The commissary workers package and deliver all items related to food service. So any like sandwiches, oh gosh, there's so many stuff. Ice, silverware. They send out the sanitizer bottles with sanitizer already in it, ready to go to the trains because most of our trains do not have the capability to make the bottles on site, so our commissaries do it. Any wares, linens, stuff like that all goes to the train. Temperature monitoring program is in place to ensure the integrity of the food delivered to the train. So they temp it in-house at the commissary. When we're transporting, some areas have refrigerated units or tugs to transport the items. We use like Cambros with ice. We used to use dry ice, but they kind of moved away from that. And again, refrigerated trucks in some locations, and mainly ice on top of our products throughout to ensure that it is delivered still below 41. And then once it gets to the train, the LSA and the chef is required to take an internal temperature. We use test yogurts at times to make sure that the food that comes in is at 41 degrees or below onto the train. So if for some reason that test yogurt is reading at 48 or 45, we are to deny the food. And then Aramark would have to bring us something different, or we would have to get it in the next location. Next slide, please. Vendor inspections. All right, so vendor inspections are pre-approved by Amtrak Public Health and subsequently inspected by the FDA, USDA, Aramark, and state or other local health departments. So not only are we inspecting them, we have our federal agencies that inspect them as well, and their in-house people in the local and state health departments. So it's several eyes that are on the vendors that we choose. They have to be a licensed facility. They have to go through their inspections and all. We have to go and visit them prior to approving them to be one of our vendors. So that we have had instances that we have been to places that were recommended to us and they didn't do well at all. Not going to lie, like they did not do well at all. So then what we decided to do was to not go with that vendor. So then we just let food and beverage know that they failed our audit and that we need to look at another vendor for whatever item that they're looking to carry. Again, all of our vendors are inspected by us. We do them basically on an annual basis. If we have any recalls, we will inspect them as well or follow up with them to make sure that they follow the proper recall process. Any concerns or complaints from OBS or our passengers, we have to follow up on that as well. So we will either do it via email, it depends on what the complaint is or the concern, or we will actually arrange to go to the facility and conduct an inspection. Next slide, please.
All right. A couple of questions have come up. I'll address them at the end. But back to Maxine's point about our vendors and our commissaries, they're also inspected. We also review whether it's the FDA audit, the state audit. So we're reviewing all that paperwork as well as like a desktop audit. Again, to make sure that there was nothing crazy, that audit is a snapshot in time. So we're trying to try to stay ahead of everything as best we can. We also respond to customer concerns. And part of our challenge here is that we do have a fair amount of illnesses reported, but sometimes it's literally motion sickness. We've had to disqualify some of our employees because of motion sickness when they're behind the cafe. But we do investigate all of our cases of suspected foodborne illness collaboratively across the network in conjunction with our claims team. In addition, we conduct communicable disease investigations with our chief medical officer. And again, they're fairly rare because of the requirements in place to reduce communicable diseases. But obviously during COVID, there were a lot of heightened protocols and things of that nature. We work closely, and I think Maxine brought it up a bit ago, with Copasan as our national vendor to provide pest service. So we're not just responding to complaints or concerns. We also have a very prescriptive integrated pest management program where all of our cars are coming in to be inspected. All of our facilities are inspected. Part of our challenge right now is that we're in the process of a lot of infrastructure repairs and maintenance. We are in the process of building and expanding in a lot of different areas. So we have to make sure as well that teams that we previously weren't in a relationship with. So for example, maybe like a Capital Delivery, they're going to build a new building adjacent to 30th Street Station. Well, we have to be involved to make sure that we're using the proper pest control mitigations prior to construction, because we don't want any uninvited guests sneaking over and through our area. And obviously the challenge is that there's a lot of variables. If there's trash left outside, and in as much as we have people to pick up the trash, we're almost a 24-hour operation, so it's not always feasible. So really trying to educate our team members to make sure about the importance of pest control and cleanliness. And again, as I said, our passenger injury investigations will be conducted with claims as well. So if someone had maybe gotten ill, or if they broke a tooth per se, something along, or they were burnt. We follow up with claims in that regard. You can go to the next slide. So currently, we're really trying to move forward and advance a lot of our programs. So we're looking at some technology advancements in our monitoring systems. So our new equipment is outfitted with remote monitoring. We still don't have that capacity. You know, as Maxine mentioned, some of our trains are 50-something years old. So we do have a manual temperature verification program in place with record keeping, and as Maxine referenced, a test yogurt. So it acts as the faux food. So we have the yogurt in there, and it has to, you know, they have to be monitoring those temperatures every X amount of hours, writing it down. We're shifting to some electronic documentation, Comply 365 as a resource tool, so that we can actually so that our team can monitor remotely, as well as their management and their leadership. Because if we're seeing the same people not fill out the information properly, it's either a training gap, they don't care, or they don't have the tools to do the right thing. So we're really trying to make sure we're proactive in that front. We are partnering with ServSafe, and we've really pushed the Certified Food Protection Manager training across to our employees. The challenge here is that we don't do that complex food preparation. We're not cooking raw chicken to 165. We're not cooling things ever. You know, there's no cooling on board. When something is heated and if it's not served, it's discarded, because we just don't have the infrastructure to support all of those items. And if you can imagine, think about if you've ever done like a food truck inspection, right? You don't want to put a hot item inside one of those under counter units, right? Because it may bring everything up to temp. So we're really trying to, again, just kind of be a little bit more standardized, a little bit more proactive as opposed to reactive. And with our corrective action program, so if there is an inspection that's been conducted, and we've actually gone to a new platform for our program, it's called Enable On. It allows us to actually track the corrective action to make sure, A, that it's been done, but it's sufficient to the need of something that has been identified. And now with this new program, it takes some of the burden off of our team and puts it right back on that direct management team. So it helps a little bit more, again, with those faster responses, because if you wait too long to follow up on something, people forgot what they did, and they're going to keep doing the wrong thing until you catch it. We're also working towards incentive programs, right? We don't want to discipline people, and quite honestly, our team doesn't have the capacity to discipline. So we don't want to write somebody out for something that they may not know, may have been a training gap. There's a lot of reasons why things don't go perfect. But when something does go really well, we want to make sure we're identifying and we're celebrating those small wins. So we had bought a bunch of thermometers, and we were all different colors, because all of our employees who work with the food are issued a thermometer, but you know, fun colors are fun, right? So we were giving those out to those employees that were kind of rising above and beyond. Next slide, please. So these are, you know, would be remiss if we didn't talk about some of our challenges, right? So part of our challenges is getting the face time with some of our employees. So a lot of our onboard crews and our employees are in the union. And if they're not on board or actively working in that capacity, they're not getting paid. So trying to have that face-to-face training can be difficult. On top of that, we need those employees on the road. So really trying to come to that sweet spot of computer-based training, but in-person training, because there's huge value in my mind of that face-to-face training. It gives some people who have not met the team before the opportunity to realize that we're not the bad, you know, not that that we're not here to get you. And you know, across the network, everyone still calls us the FDA. I'm like, whoa, back it up. So really trying to make sure we're capturing that properly. Our equipment access limitations. We are a transportation organization. We need to make sure that our trains are moving on time. So we need to be cognizant of those risks as well and how that will impact the business. So if there is something dreadfully dangerous, we're stopping that operation. But we need to be, but sometimes we don't always have access to all the equipment that we need. So we're trying to expand, again, our reach there. We need additional training. You can't just walk across a train track. You have to have right-of-way protection. You have to have blue flag protection. So sometimes it's difficult to line everything up as best you want. So really trying to make sure we're more collaborative with additional departments so we can get to where we need to be. And then the patchwork of programs, we intersect almost every single program across the network. And I'm sure, as all of you know, if something is a shared space, no one wants the ownership. So it can be really difficult to go back forth to mechanical and say, hey, this side is yours, but this side is transportation. I need you both to figure out collectively how to fix this. It's out of sight, out of mind to them, because so really trying to make sure that we are prescribing the corrective action to the right party, that we're educating the why, not just because I said so, because there is actually a risk to not doing things safely, and really determining who owns that opportunity of improvement. And for us as well, it's, well, I always did it this way. You know, I've always done it this way and no one's ever been sick. I've always done it this way and no one's ever complained. You just don't like me. No, we have to change the mentality. We have some employees who've been here for 40 years. Amazing for the longevity piece, but if it's 40 years of bad behavior, that's difficult to overcome, right? So again, trying to incentivize, to really become educational as opposed to regulatory. So even though we're grounded in that regulatory foundation, we really want to approach everything from that educational lens and bring people forward with us. It doesn't do us any good to say bad, 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 wrong, wrong, wrong. It's, you know, okay, what else can we do differently? And really trying to get the buy-in from those frontline employees. We do have new equipment coming out. And one of the sets of new equipment did not have our frontline employees input, and that was a lesson learned. So our equipment that's being built currently out in Sacramento, our employees are actually able to come into a mock-up, walk through and say, you know what, I don't have enough room here to turn around. Because honestly, if you're trying to do an inspection in that cafe car, you look at T-Rex, you're shifting to the right, they're shifting to the left. It can be really, really, really challenging. So just being, you know, cognizant of those opportunities. And then next slide, please. So these are just the different departments that we work with, just some of them. So obviously public health, our conductors are those who are taking, you know, the tickets. Our on board is anyone that's supporting our passengers. But we're also very integral with stations, mechanical engineering. So we literally touch a little bit of everything, which is great for us. But it's also difficult because we're a really small team. So I like to say that we're the best team in EH&S. I'm sure someone else would disagree with me, but I'm going to take that and run with it. I know there were a couple questions. Let me go. So our public health inspections are not made public, but we do pull the FDA inspections, the USDA inspections, and as well as third-party certification. So if a vendor has a third-party certification, we've actually implemented a new program. You have to be a third-party certified as well. We'll review that paperwork. Let me go, I can't find where oh, here they are, sorry, give me 1 second. One of the questions we have here are long haul train trips sampled more frequently since exposure is greater. Doesn't matter the distance, it matters on what type of equipment. So there are some pieces of equipment that we actually disinfect and flush more frequently. So there are some, but it's based on the way that the mechanical system was designed. So at a minimum, we're sampling once a year. Some pieces of equipment we're sampling 4 times a year. In other instances, we're literally just disinfecting and flushing more frequently. And then you have to wait 3 days before you can pull an additional sample. But it's not necessarily because it's long distance. It's just because of the makeup of the actual equipment itself. The percentage factor was actually FDA cited, not our research. We've not gotten that far yet with metrics. We've actually, with this new enable on system, that's what we're really working on, is identifying that human factor piece. We call it risk-based behaviors, or, active managerial control on the food side, but on the rail, they call it human factors. So which of these non-compliances are directly related to the human factor? So we're really trying to capture that. How many foodborne disease outbreaks have been traced back to your trains in the past 10 years? By the way, I take your good. Keep taking the train. I like that. Maybe I'll see you, although I don't take a cell anymore. I usually take the regional. We've not had a foodborne illness outbreak per se. There was a causal years and years ago, before my time. There was a causal of a potential norovirus, but there was a lot of competing priorities there. I went to Mass Maritimes, and norovirus is like my biggest fear in the world. We got norovirus when I was in the middle of the Atlantic, and it was not fun. So we're very, very cognizant of that. But we did actually have an issue 2 years ago with one of our vendors. They were flagged by the FDA of having potential listeria. So we stopped all the processes there. We pulled everything off of our trains, whether it was that identified product or not. And we actually sent a recall out to all of our passengers who were on that train saying, hey, you know what? This is what we were made aware of. There was no positive findings in food, but we want you to be aware just in case and then of course at that time we had like 100 billion foodborne illness complaints because everyone all of a sudden was sick from the turkey sandwich that wasn't implicated. But we worked through it, right? That's what you do. Let me look here. Can I share information about our food allergen program on the train and at your vendor suppliers? So we have been woefully inadequate when it comes to allergens. We really have refocused in the past year. Our service guide will actually have all the information, and we're really trying to ensure that our teams on board are never promising anything is allergen free. So a lot of hands-on training there. We do work with, oh my goodness, I'll have to get the name of the vendor, but they go through all of our menu items as well. We do have some that are completely encapsulated and wrapped and just have to be heat and served. We never open them. We don't do anything else to limit that cross contact. And there are also some programs in place that you can bring your own food even into the dining car, depending on your level of risk. But we're really striving for that education piece, labeling piece, because we don't have a lot of room. So we can't guarantee anything back at house cross contact wise. As Maxine said, our commissaries will mix our sanitizer for us. And so there's just there's too much risk for us to ever guarantee anything unless it's been fully packaged in that manner. I think I missed one. Nope, not here. Power supply infrastructure on board the trains for things like refrigeration. Are they electrically supplied, steam supplied, locomotive? Is food related waste? No, we don't have food related waste under refrigeration. So our longest haul is 3 days, but also what happens is that as we're stopping, we have designated waste stops. So in California, we actually have to make sure that we are separating that waste. We haven't gotten that advanced across the country because of the challenges, but ideally we would have a much better food waste recovery / donation program. It is supplied from the locomotive. So if we lose power, we oftentimes lose all of our food, which could be very, very not ideal, but we want to make sure that we're safe, serving safe food at all times. So that, I will totally support Justin by voting him for NEHA Regional Vice President. Did I miss any questions?
I think one of them was, are Amtrak public health inspections made public? And no, they are not.
Maybe someday when we get really good at like our metrics with our new program. Are there any other, sorry, that was kind of fast towards the end, but I knew we were coming up on time and I didn't want to belabor or, have you hear my voice more than you needed to. We have 2 colleagues that are out in the Chicago area. Happy to put you in touch with them. Maxine and I are always available for questions. If we don't answer your email, it's not, it's because it went through our firewall. So give us a call. We'll make sure we undo it. So we have some pretty strict quarantine procedures in place for email as well. But always happy to learn from you all, as well as share whatever we're doing, because the only way we get better is from that collaboration. Anything else? Several suppliers and 3 regional menus for different lines. Oh, yeah. So part of our challenge, and then I have like a minute and a half left, right? Part of our challenge is that we're in 46 states, right? And everyone wants to do what? Local and regional. How do you do local and regional safely when you're in 46 states? We don't have the bandwidth or the capacity. We traditionally use the same suppliers for our TCS foods. And then we might vary our suppliers for our non-TCS foods. It's still a work in progress. We have a brand new menu. Maxine, for Estella, is it quarterly, the menu?
Yeah.
She left me. She divorced
No,
me.
I'm here. Sorry, someone was calling.
No, you're fine. So it changes quarterly, even long distance. We actually have a test kitchen in Wilmington. I'm pointing like you can see it, in Wilmington, and they actually do a lot of different development menu ideas, and they use all the same equipment in their kitchen, even though they have plenty of room, they try to mock it down. So they're always looking to introduce new things, new items, because you want to have a good culinary experience, not just the 7-Eleven grab and go. But sorry, I'm running into Katie's presentation now. So, but honestly, any questions, please let us know. We'll answer it to the best of our ability. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my computer slightly froze. So that's fine. Thank you so much, Bridget, and thank you so much, Maxine, for your presentation. Thank you all again also for contributing for questions, comments, things of that nature. I think we are rolling up right onto our 3 p.m. presentation, and that's going to be with Katie Nelson. Katie Nelson has worked in the public health field since graduating from NIU in 2006. This will be their 7th year with the Illinois Department of Public Health Environmental Health Division. Since joining the department, Katie has worked in various programs, including structural pest control, vector, water quality, lead, and toxicology. So with that being said, Katie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. I just want to make sure that you can see my screen.
Yes.
All right. Let me go ahead and get it in slideshow mode. Okay. Does that look good?
Yes, perfect.
All right. So I know a lot of local health departments are on this call today, and we are here to provide the 1-hour solid mosquito training. On this front screen, I do have the vector control program email. I do want to make mention that if anyone has any questions during the presentation that are specific to their grant as it relates to their local health department, you do need to contact our vector control program manager. Many of you have already spoke with Samantha in the past, but here is her information. On the call today, I have myself. I am the Public Service Administrator in Environmental Health out of our Westchester Regional Office. We did recently move from West Chicago to Westchester, so we are happy to be in a new office. Also with me today, who will also be co-presenting, is Anna. Anna, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Anna Buckus. I work in our Vector Structural Pest Toxicology and Waterborne Illness program here at the state. For the past 5 years, I've been focused on mosquito control, starting with an internship at North Shore Mosquito Abatement, followed by a biologist role at South Cook County Mosquito Abatement. And now here I am at the state. In our region, I support MADS, local health departments, and municipalities with their programs. I can offer assistance with larvicide training, mosquito biology intern training, trap maintenance and repair, and many more things. If needed, feel free to reach out to me via email if you're interested in any of those.
Up on the screen now, we have the mosquito roster that Anna will be submitting to Illinois Department of Agriculture in order to receive your certificate. At the end of the presentation, we'll list the information that you need to provide Anna again via email and her email address. But we'll need your first and last name, your business address, along with the city, street, zip, your telephone number, your date of birth, your employer, and then that information can be sent via email so that Anna can provide you with a certificate upon the completion of.
Okay, to start, per the Illinois Administrative Code, for special application of solid mosquito larvicides, any person who is receiving this training may apply a mosquito larvicide product for the control of mosquitoes that meet all of the following criteria. So the larvicide needs a signal word on it saying caution. The product application method is limited to a prepackaged solid product such as a briquette of pellets or granulars. You'll see them in like a water soluble pouch. That's okay. And a review of the specific product label was included in the training, which we'll get to at later on. So again, the solid mosquito larvicide training certification is issued by the Illinois Department of Agriculture. If you received this training last year, it is a calendar year certification, so you will need it for the 2020, you would need this new training for this 2025 season. So to start, we're going to go through mosquito identification. So what is a mosquito? Well, a mosquito is a nuisance pest or a deadly vector of disease, and they can carry various diseases like Zika, dengue, chikungunya, yellow fever, malaria, but the one that we see the most in Illinois is West Nile virus. So still going off with what is a mosquito? Well, a mosquito is a part of the Animalia kingdom. They are an arthropod, so they have their external skeleton, segmented body, and segmented appendages. They are part of the Insecta class, which includes 6 legs, 3 body regions, including the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. And they are a part of the Datura order, so they are a fly with 2 wings. And then mosquitoes have a long proboscis, scales on wings, and their larvae come into the water surface for air. So here are some other insects that are commonly confused with mosquitoes. So you can see a crane fly, a biting midge, house fly, stable fly, horse flies. A lot of people like to confuse mosquitoes with other flying insects. So here are our Illinois mosquitoes of interest. We start with a Culex species mosquito, Anopheles, and Aedes species. And we will go through each species, their common names, diseases they may transmit, breeding sites, and habitats later on. So next is the mosquito life cycle. They go through a complete metamorphosis life cycle. So they start from an egg, go to a larva, then to pupa to emerge as an adult. And they kind of just cycle through that. You're starting with the life cycle, life stage 1, eggs. Your Culex species, which is typically your house mosquito, they lay eggs in rafts of 40 to 400 eggs on the water surface. Depending on environmental, they hatch out in 3 to 5 days. And they are associated with temporary pools high in organic debris and sewage. They like that foul, smelly water. So here are some habitats that Culex species like to lay their eggs. You'll see in catch basins, stagnant pools, or like culverts and roadside ditches. Next is our Anopheles species. Typically your malaria mosquito is your Anopheles, and they lay eggs that float singly on the water surface. Depending on environmental conditions, they hatch in 3 to 5 days, and they are associated with permanent freshwater pools such as ponds, marshes, and swamps with aquatic vegetation. So here are some pictures of their habitats. You'll see some marshes and a rain barrel with fresh water in it. And then next is the Aedes species. They are a little different from Culex and Anopheles. They like to lay their eggs singly on damp soil or in containers above the water line. And they can overwinter as eggs and can survive several years. And they are associated with floodwaters and artificial containers. So here are some habitats. You can see a floodwater plain, some tires, or a tree hole. However, mosquitoes will lay eggs anywhere there is standing water. So you can see some flower pots, a plastic cat bottle, a real barrel, an abandoned pond, a bird bath, gutters. And then going on to life stage 2, which is the larva stage. Larvae are called wigglers because they move in the water by wiggling. All mosquito larvae are aquatic. Mosquito larvae feed on organic debris and microorganisms in the water. Depending on environmental conditions, they can develop in 5 to 10 days. And this is the key life stage in mosquito control because you guys are larviciding. So this is the stage you're looking for because they are, again, feeding on that organic debris and microorganisms. So they will ingest the larvicide you are placing into the water. And just a side note, Culex and 80 species, if you're identifying larvae, Culex and 80 species have an elongated air tube and hang at an angle at the water surface. So that is what is showing in the picture right next to. And then Anopheles species are a little different. Their larvae lay parallel to the water surface. They don't have that elongated air tube, and they have many palpate. Next is the pupa stage. So they are also called tumblers and will dive into the water when disturbed. All pupa are aquatic. They have rounded bodies with an elongated abdomen. Depending on environmental conditions, they can develop into adults in about 3 days. They do not feed in this life stage. So larvicides are not effective at this point in their life cycle. And they breathe air through a tube protruding through the water's surface. And then next is your adults, life stage 4. They emerge from the pupa onto the water surface. Adults primarily feed on nectar. Only the female mosquitoes require a blood meal, and they need that blood for the protein for egg production, and they typically bite birds, mammals, and sometimes reptiles. Here's a little picture to know a male versus female mosquitoes. Males only feed on nectar. They live about 1 to 2 weeks. They have long pelts and feathery antennae. Female mosquitoes, their first meal is on nectar, and then they feed on blood to lay eggs. They need that protein in the blood. They live about 2 to 6 weeks. They have short pelts and filiform antennae. Culex and Anopheles adults, they can overwinter as inseminated females in culverts, caves, and under porches to survive the freezing temperatures. They travel short distances, less than a mile, so they stay really close to their breeding site. They might even use the same breeding site that they hatched out of, and they are active from dusk until dawn. Now we're going to go on to mosquitoes and their associated disease. First vector species of importance in Illinois is your Culex mosquito. This is your house mosquito. They can transmit West Nile virus and St. Louis encephalitis. They prefer to lay eggs in stagnant water with organic debris, like catch basins, abandoned swimming pools, and clogged gutters. And they are active from dusk to dawn. Here is a little Culex species map of what specific species you'll see by region. So like in the northern region, you see more of the Culex. The western region, you'll see more of that Culex tarsalis, and southern, you'll see the Culex quincunx fasciitis. Vectors migrate as weather conditions kind of continue to change. So West Nile virus, we're going to go over kind of what to look for West Nile virus because it is an occupation exposure. So again, they are transmitted by your Culex species, your house mosquito. They're maintained in a mosquito-bird-mosquito cycle. West Nile virus has been detected in many bird species, but crows and blue jays are more susceptible to the disease and death from the virus. And humans, horses, and other mammals are dead end hosts. So some symptoms that you'll see, some mild cases, you'll either have no symptoms or, again, mild flu-like symptoms, maybe some minor muscle aches. When it becomes like an active West Nile virus case, which you will need a medical diagnosis for, You'll see headaches, moderate to severe, some, again, those flu-like symptoms that are not really going away. Muscle aches, weakness, maybe a minor little trunk rash. In those severe cases, you'll see muscle pain, paralysis, disorientation, respiratory failure, possibly death. But again, that is less than 1% of the population. Here are some numbers from 2024 through our surveillance program. And again, all this surveillance data was collected by local health departments, mosquito abatement districts, the University of Illinois Veterinarian Diagnostic Lab, and then our regional IDPH staff. As you can see, 72 counties were positive for West Nile virus in either mosquitoes, birds, horses, or humans. Information is collected on a weekly basis and is entered into our state database. You can find everything on our IDPH website on our vector page. Here is some activity in the United States. There was a lot of white on here, meaning no reporting. That could just be not a lot of data was collected, or people with West Nile virus still thought it might have been COVID. We've been seeing that the last couple of years. If you have flu-like symptoms, most people just kind of stay away from each other and stay home. So another species of importance for vector is your Aedes triseriatus, which is your tree hole mosquito. They can transmit La Crosse encephalitis virus. They prefer to lay eggs in natural and artificial containers like tree holes, buckets, and watering cans, and they are active during the day. Next is your Aedes albopictus, which is your Asian tiger mosquito. They may transmit La Crosse encephalitis in Illinois. In other parts of the world, they can transmit dengue, chikungunya, and Zika virus. And they prefer to lay their eggs in artificial containers like tires and buckets, and they are active during the day. A nice little reference between your Aedes albopictus versus your Aedes aegypti. Here is a little photo. So they are both daytime biting black mosquitoes with white markings. Aedes albopictus is everywhere in Illinois. Aedes aegypti is known in Illinois and should be reported to IDPH if found. I believe last year within our Chicagoland region, we found 2. Aedes aegypti has a lyre shape on its back, and albopictus has a single line. So again, if you don't know, you can reach out to our IDPH vector staff, myself, Katie, or Samantha at Springfield. And again, just mosquito-borne diseases are all around the world and affect a lot of people. Next is our nuisance species of importance. So these are going to be those annoying mosquitoes. So first is our Aedes vexans, which is the floodwater mosquito. They are not known to transmit any human pathogens in Illinois. They prefer to lay eggs in soil that will become flooded, and they are active from dusk till dawn, and they fly long distances, about 5 to 10 miles. Next is the Aedes sollicitans, known as your salt marsh mosquito. They are not known to transmit human pathogens in Illinois. They prefer to lay eggs in salt water, like oil sites, mining areas, road salt storage areas. I know I've found a lot of them by public work departments. They are active during the twilight, and they fly long distances, again, about 5 to 10 miles. Next, we'll go into mosquito larval control. So if you are doing mosquito surveillance for larvae and pupa, you're going to need a few things. You want to find standing water with little to no wave action, and you want to have a 4-inch diameter white dipper. And some other useful items if you are collecting would be waders or like rain boots. pipettes, jars, and vials so you can collect and store. And then when you do collect, you do not want to disturb the water. You do not want to cast a shadow. If vegetation is present, look near clumps at the water's edge and remove any larvae from the dipper and place into jars to identify. So again, number one way to kill larvae is to remove the water source. You want to identify the target mosquito species. You want to know the breeding areas. Treat with the appropriate larvicide for the species and breeding areas. Track areas of treatment and recheck every 1 to 2 weeks just to ensure that the larvicide you placed in is working. And remember that larvae feed and pupa do not. And then this is a really good picture of that elongated air tube that the larvae breathe out of. So here are a couple methods of ways to control mosquito larvae. In the southern parts of the country, you'll see more of that helicopter and airplanes larviciding. You can use a backpack sprayer. You can pour in larvicide, liquid larvicide, mosquito dunks, or those briquettes, or you can kind of use a pump sprayer. Surveillance after, you would want to do surveillance after the treatment. Again, back checking 1 to 2 weeks after larviciding to ensure effectiveness, any locations that might have been missed, possible insecticide resistance, and maybe some changes in species. Some personal protection that you can use when you're out doing surveillance. You can avoid dusk and dawn activities. I know that is hard because it is summertime. I know everyone's going out, maybe going to their kids' games, baseball games. But you want to wear light colored clothing and long sleeve clothing. Replace clothing containing any body odors with fresh clothes, and then use EPA registered insect repellents. Mosquitoes are attracted to vibrations, dark colors, odors, movement, humidity, and carbon dioxide. Some property control that you can do or ensure is remove containers that hold standing waters, clean gutters and downspouts, refresh bird baths weekly, maintain pools and ponds, and that way you could making sure you use chemicals on your pools. And if you have like a freshwater pond, maybe put some aeration into it. You want to remove old tires or even drill a hole at the bottom of the tire just so it can't hold water, and repair and replace ripped screens. Next, we're going to talk about ticks and just kind of the common ticks that you might see on your day-to-day basis. So ticks can carry multiple diseases in the United States. A couple are like Lyme disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, anaplasmosis, etc. Starting off with the American dog tick. They are mostly on the eastern side of the United States. But again, due to climate change, they are moving northern and eastern. Rocky Mountain spotted fever is transmitted by the American dog in eastern, central, and western United States. Some symptoms that you will see, those early onset symptoms include a high fever, a severe headache, maybe some discomfort and muscle pain. Those late symptoms you can see altered mental status, maybe a coma. It is very serious. Next is the black-legged tick. And again, this map may be a little outdated. They are moving more north. We're seeing it in northern Illinois and Wisconsin more. And they carry Lyme disease. So again, on this map, you can see Wisconsin and about in the East Coast, see a lot of Lyme disease cases. Lyme disease is associated with that bullseye rash. So that's kind of how you can tend to know. It's about 3 to 30 days after your tick bite, you'll start seeing symptoms. And again, you'll see fever, chills, fatigue, headache, etc. With all these vector-borne diseases, it's good to keep an eye out on your body to make sure that you are knowing what's going on, and if you are feeling off and it gets worse, to go seek medical advice. Next is the brown dog tick. So you'll see this everywhere in the United States. We're starting to see the Lone Star tick a lot more too. So, and if you are seeing this, you got to report it to IDPH. And just overall, what's the concern with ticks? Well, they spread somewhat randomly. It takes a long length of time to establish and be recognized in the medical community. They can encroach habitats, and it's a great identification of new diseases. IDPH offers tick cards, and these tick cards tell you how to identify which tick you are seeing and how to properly remove them. If you are interested for your local health department, you can contact us and we can get you some tick cards. They're great for giving out to your community, or great for just keeping on yourself if you're out and exploring and different outdoors activities.
Okay, the next portion of the presentation is going to go into the label review. We are required by Illinois Department of Agriculture, who is the certification issuer, to go through all larvicides that could be used under the certification. So while I understand it can be a little painful to sit through all the labels, what I'm going to do is quickly go through each of the labels and point out differences that we see on different labels. I want to start with the safety requirements. So this all could be summed up by you need to review the label for personal protective or PPE requirements and all of the other items listed on there. The goal is not to get complacent. Even if you're using the same product for multiple years in a row or multiple summers in a row, it is important that whether it's yourself applying, if you have interns that will take this in the future, that they are familiarizing themselves with the label. So we want to make sure that we have the appropriate PPE. Always keep the product label on you. I'm sure many of you know from being in the field that you could have citizens approach you. People are going to be questioning what you're doing. It's nice not only being able to explain what you're doing and the product label, but have it with you if you needed to provide a copy to them. You always want to look at the use restrictions for this particular certification. It's general use only, so that's going to have the signal word caution. You do want to ensure that you're reviewing the application rates. And when you are applying the larvicide, obviously for that product to be effective, you want to apply it at the rate listed on the label, but you want to make sure that you're never over applying. That will not fall within the label requirements. You want to look at your application methods. So how are you going to apply the product? Where is it going to be applied? Any first aid requirements, and ensuring that you do have those first aid items on hand. You want to look at the storage and disposal to ensure that you're properly storing the product and disposing of it at the end of the season or when you're no longer using it. And then for any potential environmental hazards that could be included on the label. Like I said, pesticides labeled as restricted use require a different certification, so we're only going to be looking at general use pesticides. And the label is a legal document, and you'll hear me say it a couple more times, but the label is the law and it must be followed. So it's important when you're applying any sort of chemical or pesticide to know the toxicity of that larvicide. So the toxicity is going to be when half the tested subject population dies from the effects of ingesting so many milligrams of concentrated material per kilogram of body weight. So below I have some examples: caffeine, sugar, nicotine, You've got your Alticid and your BTI, which are two larvicides that we'll talk about further, and then your botulinum toxin. So you don't want to, again, you don't want to become complacent with anything just because it's a product that you're familiar with and has a higher LD50. Each shipment that you receive of your pesticide or larvicide should include an SDS sheet. This SDS sheet should be reviewed for further information that's not included always on the label. They can contain additional information on any health risks and effects, additional first aid, fire protection, spill control, your LD located on your SDS sheets, and then disposal requirements. So when you're looking at the site that you want to treat, you need to know what kind of larva that you have present, and Anna talked about the identification, and then what are you going to use for the control of the larva? Not all of these larvicides that we're going to discuss today have the same mode of action. So this table lists your methoprim, your BSs, your BTIs, and your spinosad. We'll go through the different types each one is and the mode of action that it has on the larva or the target mosquito that you are trying to eliminate breeding. And then where should you be using these products? So we'll start with methoprim. It is a molecule that closely resembles insect juvenile hormone. Methoprim acts by disrupting the molting cycle of some insects, and when it's applied to aquatic habitats to control mosquito, it causes the mosquito to die at the pupal stage, where they cannot molt into adults. So when you're back checking, it's important to understand that if you're using this type of larvicide, that you may still see larvae present because it's not going to kill the mosquito until the following stage. On the left are some listed larvicides that use methoprim. All right, so this is where we're going to dive into the labels of all the different larvicides that are included under this certification. This first part just points out that the active ingredient is going to be listed on each larvicide that you're using. There is a precautionary statement that goes over your hazards to both human and animals, including first aid recommendations in case you get it on your eyes or skin for this particular label or clothing. It'll also talk about environmental hazards on this label and covers how you should dispose of this product. The section of this part of the label is going over directions for use. It talks about that once you remove this from the container, you should be using the larvicide immediately. And you should also not put it in any other container other than its original container. So you don't want to break down your product into smaller containers or containers that don't contain the label. It should stay in its original packaging. This label also goes into the application timing. For this one specifically, it talks about gaining 30-day control at sites. So it would be important to know that if you're using this particular larvicide, that this is not something that's going to last you throughout the duration of the mosquito season. It also talks about the sites that it could be applied at. So here we're looking at small bodies of water, such as catch basins, small ponds, or pools. There's also a long list of other possible application sites. This portion of the label talks about your application rates and intervals. So it's a chart that shows you exactly the catch basin size and the water depth. If you're a municipality that are treating their catch basins, you want to make sure that you're aware of the size of your catch basins so that you're applying the appropriate amount of larvicide. For storage and disposal, most larvicides that we're going to talk about today will direct you to store your product in a clean, dry, and cool area off the ground. And almost all of them will say that all of them do say, don't ever reuse a container for anything else. We're going to move on to Alticid XR. So this is an extended release briquette. Note that the control for this product is 150 days. This label also discusses the application rates for specific species. So when we talked about identifying your mosquito or your mosquito larva, this is helpful to know as you're going through the label. This portion just talks about that these are solid or water-soluble pouches. So when reading this label, you want to pay special attention to the handling and storage of this because they're going to be more sensitive than your briquettes. The label indicates that the pouches should be used within 1 day of opening the bag. This goes over the directions for use, and you'll see on most of your labels that you're going to see that first statement that it's a violation of federal law to use this product in a manner that's inconsistent with its labeling. So again, the label is the law. So this label lists the specific mosquito habitats and the application rate. So, different areas that you're going to be treating may have a different application rate. Some of them will actually look at the gallons of water, or some will look at the square footage of the surface of the water. So before you go out to a complaint, or if you're doing any sort of large scale larviciding, you want to have a good idea of what kind of surface area you're looking at so you have the appropriate amount to apply. So our next one, we're going to talk about Bacillus sphaericus. BS is ingested by larval mosquitoes, and the bacteria releases proteins in the midgut. The protein binds to a receptor in the midgut of the mosquito and causes enough damage to kill the mosquito. So we've got Vectilex and Spheritex here. So this is just showing that it's a different active ingredient that we had talked about previously. Notice here that they do list the poison control hotline number. When talking about the storage and disposal, it talks also about the breakdown of the container as well. And then for this, on the application directions, it specifically spells out that it is okay to apply in areas that contain fish and other aquatic life. That's not going to be the case for some of the other larvicides that we'll be discussing today. For this one, we have the notice to the user. It's basically saying that the user is going to assume all risks associated with using this product in a manner that is inconsistent with the label, which is why it is important to always review labels prior to using any sort of pesticide or larvicide. This has specific application directions that said it cannot be made to any receptacles that are intended for human consumption, which would not be a typical application for this type of product. All right, so now we're moving on to our BTIs, which produce a protein crystal during fermentation. These microscopic crystals are ingested by mosquito larvae as they feed. In the mosquito's digestive system, the crystals are dissolved and converted by enzymes into protein molecules that will bind to a receptor site on the mosquito gut wall. So it's a gut toxin. This binding will cause the changes which destroy the walls of the mosquito larva's gut, and they will quit feeding within hours and quickly die. So if you're going to back check a site where you have used this, this is an instance where you would actually see a quick kill off of the larva as opposed to your methaprin where you would still see larvae. So 4-star BTI briquettes, again, we're moving on to a different active ingredient, so we'll see that listed on all of our labels. This first aid information includes what to do if the product is inhaled, in addition to like the previous ones, if it gets on your skin or your clothing or in your eyes. This also includes information or a directive to ensure that if you're going to seek any medical attention, whether it be contacting the Poison Control Center, a doctor, or any sort of emergency medical treatment, that you would want to have the product with you if possible. That way, if you're kind of in a panic, if something's happened, you would be able to provide a label to your treating physician so that they can understand exactly what the exposure was. When we're talking about directions for use, we're moving on to a product that's good for approximately 45 days. It also points out in the directions for use that it optimally performs best in shaded areas. So depending on your application site, this may not be the best for areas that are exposed to a lot of sunlight. This goes into your application rates, your storage and disposal, and again, that notice to the user talking about using the product in accordance with the label. For application sites here, this one for your extended release, this is a 150-day application. So again, seasonally, you have to determine what sort of product will work best for your needs. A lot of municipalities will start off using a 150-day product and then move as it goes towards the end of the season to a product that maybe they only need 30 days of coverage. These mosquito dunks are ones that can be commonly found in most of your local hardware stores. This label does have special language for pre-flood and use in evaporative coolers. It is for residential use in artificial containers, and it specifically talks about the species that it targets, and it's for control of Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus. And there are examples of larvicides that will use both active ingredients. Here we see the active ingredients listed on the label, like all of our other ones. Your precautionary statements and environmental hazards. It does talk about the fact that you need to wash hands or contaminated clothing if it is exposed to the briquette. Therefore, it's also important to remember to use the PPE as directed. This part of the label for this particular product, it talks about the application rate can be doubled when it is used in heavily polluted water or large amounts of algae is observed. So depending on your application site, this could be different than treating a somewhat clear area of water as opposed to maybe a failing an area where you may have a failing septic system and you're applying it to sewage or an abandoned pool that has large algae growth. At the bottom and on all your labels, you're going to see all the manufacturer information as well as the EPA registration number and establishment number. It is important to note that if you are out in the field and you ever have any questions about how to use the product, if it's not clear on the label, this would be the best number to call. You don't want to ask whoever's riding in the car with you. Most of these companies will have representatives that are readily available to answer any questions that you may have. Our 4-star briquette, it's just highlighted here that this is effective for 90 days, where this one is effective for 180 days. So make sure you know how long your larvicide is going to be effective for. For this water-soluble pouch, it does talk about how weather conditions can affect the duration of the product. So it's important to monitor all your environmental conditions. This could be specific to if you're using a product for, let's say, the basin of a trap, and you have heavy rains and you don't have the appropriate overflow, holes drilled in the side, you may have to do some back checking. So when you're out in the field, make sure you're looking at your basin to ensure that you're not actually breeding the mosquitoes that you're catching. This one is highlighted just because it talks about an expiration date. So you do want to ensure that you're rotating your stock from year to year and ensuring that the product that you're using is not expired. And again, just more parts of the label showing different treatment areas. All right, so our last active ingredient that we're going to talk about is spinosad. And spinosad alters the function of a specific insect receptor in a unique action that causes continuous nervous impulses. This constant and voluntary nervous stimulus causes paralysis and death, and this action results in ingestion, as well as by contact with the active ingredient. So not only is it ingested in the larval stage, but also by contact. These labels contain some unique information. This actually has a lot of information compared to the other ones. It lists specific vectors, vector-borne diseases such as Zika, dengue, and chikungunya. The environmental hazard statement does...
I found this on the web.
Sorry, the environmental hazard statement does note that it is toxic to environmental or to aquatic organisms, and it may harm some of your non-target invertebrates in aquatic environments. So unlike some of the other ones that we looked at where it's safe to use with in aquatic environments with fish, this one would differ there. It also includes a section for integrated pest management on the label. And it also includes product insecticide resistance management. So there's a lot of educational information contained in this label. They have very specific application rates inside sites. Specifically, this one talks about using this product in dormant rice fields. Here's the application chart that shows number of tablets per water depth and square feet. Additional information on storage and disposable and refilling the container. Again, it talks about not applying it to areas that are intended to water that it's intended for irrigation. And then some other highlighted areas that talks about just reading all the directions. Because this one is so specific, you want to ensure that you're not applying this product in an area against the label. And with all of your labels, you want to ensure that you're reading all the directions before use. All right. We made it through all the labels that are covered under the certification. I did just want to point out that we have updated our website and we do have a lot of useful handouts on there, as well as good places that you can provide references to for anyone that has questions that you can't answer. In addition to, you can always contact any of our vector control staff. I do also want to point out that Samantha had sent out this flyer for vector surveillance training, and the dates are listed there, April 2nd, April 9th, and the 22nd. Additional virtual 1-hour applicator trainings will be coming out shortly. I believe the goal is to do about 3 more of those, but we also do in-person 1-hour applicator trainings if your local health department needed that for any reason. And then there is one more extension pesticide safety seminar in person that's coming up. Anna, I, and Jaya will be up in Rockford on the 27th of this month to teach the applicator prep course prior to taking the test. All right, here's the slide that I want everyone to take note of. This is just reiterating what Anna needs from you via email in order for her to submit the roster to Illinois Department of Agriculture. So I'll leave that up there for a second. All right. And then, so after we receive your information, we will provide the roster to Illinois Department of Agriculture. They've been getting them back to us fairly quickly. You will receive a hard copy of your certification in the mail. That's why we want it to go to your workplace. And then we will also email you a copy of your certification. If you have multiple people from one health department taking this training, please send all of the information together so we can just pop one email back to you containing all the certificates. It is important to remember that this training is required annually and it's only valid for the calendar year in which the training was received. So this will only be good until the end of this year. And if you need to obtain a certificate for next season, you will have to take a 1-hour course again prior to applying any larvicide. And then there's just a couple of other information down there for you for numbers: Illinois Poison Control Center, the National Pesticide Information Center. I did call both of these numbers prior to this presentation, so they are working and there to answer any questions that you may have. And like I said previously, make sure that you're calling the product manufacturer if you have any questions when you're out in the field about the product application or use. And that is it. And if there's any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat or to contact us.
All right, thank you so much, Katie. And was it Anna? I'm so sorry. I didn't have you on my list. I do apologize. It looks like we do have several questions. First one up here is, do most larvicides have expiration dates? I contacted my larvicide manufacturer and they stated that their larvicide doesn't expire, but to get the same results, more briquettes may be required when used.
If there is anything listed on the label, like I said, the label is the law. If you are reaching out to a manufacturer, I would definitely suggest getting something in writing, allowing you to use that its expiration date, or just, maintain that information so you know that the product that you're applying is effective.
And I just want to double check. Oh, here's a question here. Do you know of any resources we can provide to municipality personnel interested in taking the 1-hour larvicide training? In the past, it has only been available during the day, morning/early afternoon, during the work week.
Currently we have our virtual ones that Samantha will be putting out there, but if you're at least within the Westchester Regional Office, we have been pretty flexible. If there's a large enough amount of people that want to take the course, you can reach out directly to me. And if I can't get you in touch with someone from your regional office, if you're outside of Westchester, we work to try to figure something out to get them licensed or certified.
I see there are several questions about which email address does their certificate info go to. I hope I didn't put the wrong one. I put, is it Anna's email that goes in here?
Correct. It can go to Anna or myself, but she'll be the ones. Oop, she's gonna put it in the chat just to make sure.
Okay, good. Several people have been asking. I think I copied one that perhaps misspelled the name. Yeah,
There we
several.
go.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. So that's in the chat for everyone that needs that information to earn your certificate.
Correct. Anna was recently married, so she introduced herself as Anna Butkus, but her email address remains what's in the chat.
No, that's completely fine. Do we have any other questions? Double check the Q&A box here. Okay, those are from my previous one. Okay, if we have no other questions, thank you all. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Anna, so much for your presentation. Thank you, everyone, for participating for day 2 of our virtual conference. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. Oh, hold on. Am I missing? Oh, someone had asked, could you please bring back the needed information for email submission? I think it's been put in the chat, the email, and then they're needing name, address, your business name, date of birth, and then phone number.
Correct.
Okay. Excellent. Oh, someone asked, how do you get the tick cards?
You can reach out to Anna and we will get the tick cards mailed out to you or dropped off to you. Just let us know how many that you need. We have plenty.
Excellent. And then just as a reminder, if nobody was able to copy down the email address, all the slides and the information that's been presented for today will be sent out to you, so you'll be able to follow up then as well. All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining us. That is all I have for today, and I will see everyone next week to kick off day 3. Thank you so much.
Thank you.